Welcome to the Laser Lounge podcast at Pate Ranch, where creativity meets craftsmanship and the laser world comes to life. I'm Alisha Pate, your host, a maker and also a laser engraving pro. Whether you're a seasoned laser veteran, a hobbyist looking to turn passion into profit, or you're a small business owner ready to scale, you're in the right place. Each episode, we dive into the latest trends, some business strategies, industry insights, and hands-on tips to help you maximize your laser setup. We also bring in group experts to talk about irrelevant topics that's going on in the laser and maker space. We'll share real-world experiences from our own shop, and we like to talk about laser, woodworking, leather, and more. So grab your coffee, fire up your laser, and let's get to work. We want to thank our show sponsors. They are Thunder Laser USA, Pate Laser USA, and Phantom CNC. Look forward to today's topic. All right, here we are. It's 2025. This is our first podcast this year. We kind of took some time off just because fourth quarter was crazy. And then we were kind of recovering, or I fully was in January and some of February. But we need to get back to our podcast today. So James, welcome back to the Laser Lounge podcast at Pate Ranch. And I think we're going to have a really good topic today. This topic has come up a couple of times in the group. We talk about a lot in our own, discussions about business, but I had a maker friend ask me, Alisha, truly, what do you mean by opportunity cost? And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get rolling, let's just kind of summarize what we've been up to. We had a really good year. We did the best that we have done in the years of this business, especially now that we're doing it, or I'm doing it full time.
You mean revenue and orders wise?
Correct. And we really stretched ourselves and pushed to get more B2B jobs. And we saw that was really the way that we need to be going from looking at our financials. We did basically a look back on our annual business review, and the numbers showed that we need to keep tracking towards that route. So we were real happy with how we did last year.
I was just going to say, and we also looked at, we talked about this a lot, but what our value is, who is, how we correlate. So we said, who's going to value our work versus trying to compete with, for example, 4Print. That's going to be really hard to compete with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much, and not to delve too much into it because we could probably spend a whole episode on it, but we really, I think, whittled back that we want to stay boutique niche with our kind of Western country theme, the leather stuff. We kind of had some opportunities to maybe kind of open up our aperture a little bit with some more promo type things. And we were like, ooh, that's a rough area to get into. So, but anyway, I think we're still doing the right thing with our business. We could always, tune it a little bit more, but from that side of things are going well. And then I guess the other thing to say that we're just coming out of APA conference out in Vegas. I had an opportunity to speak there on leather. Our dogs keep going out the dog door. Sorry about this. And I spoke on leather, and it was a good event, but mainly we wanted to go out there and look at UV printing. And so you have not had an opportunity to go to a conference or a show that had some of the vendors there, and looking at some of the UV printing manufacturers, and then also some of the other awards that are out there. We saw some companies that you don't get to see by just Googling online. So, I thought APA was worth it. I don't know if I need to go to 5 of these events a year, but definitely I think if you are not going to some of these once or twice a year may be worth it if you're wanting your business to grow. Any expansion on APA?
Yeah, I mean, the main things I wanted to see was obviously the color printing and then the awards. So I really got that out of it. Got to meet with some good suppliers there, get my hands on the product. We're going to order some samples, sizes, and then we're going to make some samples. We're going to go out and market those to some of our customers. I think it's going to open up our product offering.
Yeah, I really liked a lot of the really thick acrylic type awards that some of the suppliers had. I'm not so much for the old school ones that look like, something you get if you're like at a dance cheer contest, but some of the other ones that were more modern and just more sleek. There were a lot of neat designs out there. So
yeah, I mean, I have a ton of those dance contest awards, so I don't want more of them. They're just collecting dust. But I did, it emphasized the need to put color into our product too. So we're working on that part.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, that's a big, investment." It is. They're not cheap. It's not a toy. You're looking anywhere from 35 to $60,000. I know some people have gotten some for you can get some China ones around 5 grand, but it's a heavy investment. It's not something just to kind of, you know, I'm gonna go order some machine or an
We're going to play
Amazon.
with it.
It's not an
Yeah.
Amazon purchase, right? So
It's got an opportunity cost.
that is true. So that's a good segue into what we want to talk about today. So thanks for giving us a little time to kind of catch up on not have been on the podcast as much, but we're going to make more concerted effort now that we have time. So let's talk about opportunity cost. It's the hidden price in every decision in your shop or business. And so, James, give us, what a true definition of it is. Maybe one in your business world that you do, and then maybe one in the maker space that relates to us.
Okay. Anytime you make an investment of a resource, your time, your money, your energy, you have to decide what you're going to spend it on. So if you spend it on option A, it means you can't spend it on option B. So there's always an alternative. And what is that alternative? So for us, like, well, I'll take an example at work, at any Fortune 500 company, any commercial company, they make an investment, they expect an internal rate of return, an IRR. So they have to decide whether they're going to buy stock back, pay down debt, make internal investments. So they want a return on that money, and every company has their different number. But let's say it's 10 or 12%. They expect to return 12% on that money every year on that investment, and it needs to reap that reward. Otherwise, why would they make the investment? So the same thing in your workplace, in your business. That is, we invest our time, our energy, our money in equipment. It means we can't invest it in other equipment or other products or developed other products. And we have this conversation all the time. As a matter of fact, I mean, this is really applicable here. We say, well, should we be hustling more and trying to make more product? Like you told me the other day, well, don't go get more orders because I don't want to fill more orders. I want to spend more of my time on developing new products. So I'll just admit this, we should have a schedule, that's like a tip already is, schedule your time because your time is your most valuable non-renewable resource. Make use of that. Everybody's got 24 hours in a day. How are you going to spend it? So this year, we'll talk about this in another podcast, but we're going to be more intentional about how we segment our time because that is an opportunity cost. Are we going to hustle and try to make, whatever our shop rate is? If your shop rate's $50 an hour, $100 an hour, if you developed a new product, how much would you make on that? So if you're making $50 an hour, but you could develop a new product in 10 hours, 20 hours, and it was going to reap, $100 an hour, maybe you want to do that. So you have to balance all that out. That's a very, personal decision, right?
So that's
a strategy.
That's a good, definition of opportunity cost, both in business and also the makerspace. And I think if someone asked me, I question myself a lot, like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm making these little bitty things that only turn, let's say they turn, I don't know, $20 or $30 profit. If it's a quick turn and I can do my dollar shop rate and it's still high, then it's maybe worth it. But we also have brought in products that are, the price points are triple what our used to be prices were. And I can just look at my numbers and say, man, I should be inventing more things like that. Right. I mean, and so as I'm sitting here making the little widget, give an example. I'm making these, let's say I make 30 widgets today. Well, what if I didn't sell those widgets anymore and I create something really cool that was $200 and now I'm selling those and I've spent that time. That's what we mean by, are you spending your time wisely or are you losing opportunity because of the time you're spending?
Yes. A specific example. I asked you the other day, why don't we do we want to buy some more of the slate coasters? You said no. And this is regional, right? So in our region, they're saturated. Other areas are probably good. But you said, look, I make like $1 a coaster. So by the time I spend my time, even though you can put it in a grid on your own, you can run 30 of them a time or something, you're going to make $30. Well, you're making like $15 an hour. You probably don't want to spend your time that way.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about this often. Another good example is and I talked about this in the group before, we were approached by kind of a middleman and he came in and he was talking about, oh, these products you make, I could sell like crazy. Well, they were products that were under $30. And then we started talking volume. This is where it really hit me. We started talking the volume with him. He's like, if I sold 1,000 of these and then y'all were making these, and we're like, wait, I'm going to be in here working like, a cobbler for small volume, he gets his cut. What if I just said, no thanks, and spent my time somewhere else, and then I get all of the money, right? And I could have a different product that has more revenue. So that's what we mean by, before you do stuff, look at it and see what opportunity costs are associated with it.
Does it fit your strategy? Right. Because you could spend that time doing something else, which would yield better results and would help you achieve your goals. Right. So he was, I think you need to have a filter for that because, I explained to an individual, look, I don't want my wife getting carpal tunnel syndrome. He was very disappointed and went off kind of sad or whatever. But, you need to have that end game in mind. And I will say this on the counter side of it, when we first started, we did some things and we probably made $15, $20 an hour, just admitting that, right? But we were trying to learn and we were growing, we're getting our name developed, but we've moved away from those products now. So there's kind of a maturation process or curve that you go through, and we're tuning, what we need to work on. So if something is outside of our strategy, it doesn't support our goal, then it has a poor exchange. It's not there's an opportunity cost there if we need to be focused on things that help us achieve our goals and our
Correct.
strategies.
Yeah. So let's kind of go through some opportunity costs that are specific for laser engraving and the maker business, because the people out there may be going, well, how does that relate to me? Give me some examples. I'm going to talk about the first one, then I'll let you hit the next one.
Okay.
It's time versus money. Are you spending hours on low value work instead of high dollar projects? And I kind of hit a little bit of that with my example. We as makers, I think, have a tendency to kind of like, oh, I got an order, or I have an idea, or I'm going to make this. What if you were making that same thing, but it was 3 or 4 times more expensive, right? So the other piece is it better to design your own products or engrave bulk orders for clients? So, looking at how you're spending your time, how much the things are that you are doing, how much you're getting in return for that, just evaluate that, right? Start writing some things down and taking a look there. So once you hit the next one.
Sure. The next one's your target customers or your customer selection versus your pricing. So are you, and we did this, I'm going to give an example. Are you taking on some underpriced, low volume custom work versus focusing on high profit business to business orders? I'll give a quick example of that. So we do signs. We have cedar signs, we have cedar wood, but we said, oh, that's great. We can use the cedar off our property. But by the time you develop one of these signs and engrave it and seal it and all that, we could have done, one high, and we can get into specifics later, but we could do a high profit, business to business order. And probably we calculated it, we'd make 3 or 4 times the profit margin on some of the specific examples we were looking for. Another one is saying yes to low margin projects. That means you can't do the higher margin projects. I know that's obvious, but just think about that. While you're working this low margin product, making $15 an hour, you're not making your shop rate. So we talk about this a lot, but figure out what your shop rate is, and it should have everything in it. Your overhead, if you want to make $50 an hour, great, target those products and move yourself closer to it.
Yeah. And I'll kind of piggyback on that one. I think that I'm going to say we've been blessed in that we've had constant flow of orders, a queue or a backlog for at least 2.5 years, which that sounds great and all, but it really isn't, because that probably means that I'm taking on orders that I shouldn't be, because I never can get it to where I don't have anything to do so I can go be creative. And when I've stopped and been creative and just said, I'm not doing anything today, it's opened up new product lines for us, because one, I enjoy that part and that's why I got into it. But that's exactly the topic we're talking about. I am not looking at what I'm truly working on and where is that bandwidth? How am I spending my time? Could I be inventing or making something a lot neater and nicer that would sell at a higher rate?
Yes. Every time you've given yourself some free space for creativity, you come out with new products. I mean, these are old. This is an old example, but we bought a bunch of staves. I mean, we've talked about that before, whiskey barrel staves, and we've got like 3 pallets back there.
What do you mean 7?
Oh, okay. 3 or 4, whatever. So we were like, how are we going to get rid of these? And I think you had an idea. This is back before I think we saw anyone doing it. We made ornaments out of it. We made custom ornaments out of it. I think everybody does that now. It's not a big deal. Then we made bottle openers out of it. But that, they sold pretty well that year. I got rid of a pallet.
Yeah, but our mindset as savvy engineers was, how do we take this stuff that's sitting on our land and sell it and make money from it? And stupidly, we got lost in the trees, the forest
Yeah.
or the trees or whatever the cliche thing is. We were like, oh, we got all this raw material that we could make money from. But the things that we were coming up with, they weren't like home runs. They were like singles. You know,
Well, we made pretty good on money on that. Then the market got saturated. That's why you always have to have new products coming
yeah.
out, right? And that's another example. That's sunk cost. So we can just burn those in the fire pit or whatever. But you can't get too fixated on that. But yeah, next one.
Okay, the next one is equipment and business investments. Should you be buying a new laser or upgrading your existing tools? And I'll kind of give an example on this one. I bought a leather stitcher 3 years ago, and then I let it sit in my shop because I didn't have the time to teach myself. And some of it was probably not fear of learning, but I didn't know how to stitch at all. So it was like, I got to have the time to learn how to do this. And so it just sat there years, and I'm, dust the dust off of it. And people kind of made fun of me in the group, which rightfully so. And we kind of used it as a joke. But once I finally sat down and learned how to actually stitch, we've probably got half of our product lines now that are leather products that require a stitcher.
Yes.
And, if I kicked myself, I wished I would have learned how to use that thing earlier. And now I have 2 leather stitchers. But, so learn, how to use some of the tools that you have in your shop. And if there's something that have the capital money to be able to buy, and there's something that you need equipment wise, there's some formulas that you can sit down and go through and say, how much is it going to take to get my return back on this investment. But maybe you do need to upgrade some things in your shop so that you can, open more product lines, things like that. But, that was just an example or true to me that I wish that I would have, stopped some things earlier and learn how to use that tool, because it's done so much for our business.
Yeah, I think we just got bogged down in cranking out new products, or not new products, focused on the old products rather, and then it didn't allow us to focus on the new products. Is what I was going to say, which is a good segue to the next one. Are you hustling or are you learning and growing your skills? So you can spend time on kind of R&D or, experimenting, if you will, versus just cranking out the orders. We've done that with some of our products that I've got them behind me here. We've got 5 and 6, 7, 10 iterations of some of these products that we developed. And it takes some experimentation. And I think that's a mindset. You need to be open to that and learning that. I know when we first started, not to pick on you because you were just trying to be conscientious, but you were upset because you were wasting some material. I'm like, so what? It's a one-time thing. I mean, yeah, you just wasted $100 worth of product, but you developed a new product that came out, and we made, frankly, tens of thousands of dollars on it. That's what you have to do. It's just an investment. Same thing with software. You've got Lightburn, Illustrator.
That's a good one that you talk about the software there, because I see so many makers. You're either just do everything in Lightburn.
Yeah.
And honestly, they've taken that software to some really nice places, but it really is not a design software. I mean, you can design in it. And I know they'd probably be mad for me saying that, but its main purpose is to run that laser and drive the instructions to the laser. So if you truly slow down and learned Illustrator or Corel and got more of an advanced capability in that software, you would just be shocked at how many things you can do from a maker perspective just by making that software dance. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes. And on a related note, it is worth your time to invest in getting some level of competency up. I mean, like when I got VCarve, I got the advanced training and went through all that. It was like, 3 or 4 days of intense training. I was just trying to crank through all that. And without that, it would have been a much longer learning curve. So try to get through that learning curve. And that's important. And because the other option is, you outsource the work. So, and that's another good thing. This is an old, back when GE was a great company, they had a saying, you can it's either a core competency, you're going to make it a core competency, you're going to outsource it. So that's one way to think about it. And I think you do outsource some software work that would take you, 10, 15 hours. Cause that's an opportunity.
Yeah, but
cost.
you know what? I was doing that. And then I added another software, Topaz Photo AI, and now I do 90% of it. And so it only takes 5 minutes now, and I don't have to spend the $10 to $20 that I was paying the other girl. Right?
Did it pay itself back quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's $140 subscription, I think it was. I don't know if it was a one-time buy or what, but I definitely saved more over the holiday time because I could do
Okay.
I could do 90% of my renderings that I was sending to the other digital
And
designer.
it saved you time, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So you have some real world examples to share and
Yeah.
some
So
stories?
this first one is really a good one, and I shared in the Facebook group before. So this is the real world examples and stories. So this one is a maker who scaled by recognizing opportunity costs. So shifting from direct to consumer Etsy orders versus B2B and B2B wholesale. When we did our final numbers at the end of the year, it was pretty shocking. And I don't have it right in front of me, but I did kind of a breakout of the number of orders that I did and what the profit was from them. And I mainly go through either Shopify, which is most of my clients. And so some will find me on the web, but most are me using as an invoicing tool. And then I have a little bit of Etsy, but everything was going through those two systems. So I was able to be able to mine that data. And what I saw was that I think it was around 70 something percent of our money for the year was from B2B. And there was only like 50 orders or something. So that was telling me that I had, there might have been a high number of units, but the orders was not like, wow, out of this park, right? And then when I went and looked at the Etsy orders, it was like, gosh, 300 and something orders, and it was only like 17% of the total portfolio. So it was like, holy cow, I'm spending so much time on the D2C Etsy orders, packing and fulfilling them, and they're really not turning a lot of money. Whereas if I got off Etsy, which I haven't yet, but I probably
Well, you
need
took
to.
some products off.
I
Etsy.
did take
Yeah,
some
yeah.
products off because I didn't want to be packing those orders. But the visualization of what the B2B was doing for our portfolio versus the Etsy stuff. And I'm like, why? It was just shocking how much time I was spending on Etsy because, you're packing all those orders.
Well, the other thing, this is really important, and we don't probably dive into this enough. Your reputation is super important. So one of the orders we got last year was a fifth of our total revenues in just one order. Now, let me qualify that. They placed a second order, which they didn't need until this year. But if I took that total amount, it was a fifth of our orders, right? That person heard about us from somebody else. So our reputation was important. So
they had our brand on the back of something they received.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is when you package that product, it's got to be right. And when we've gotten into a rush, if you don't take the time to put the right packing in it and make sure it's perfect, then that product's representing you. So that's, again, is another example of opportunity cost, right? If you're trying to come out with a high product, high value, higher margin, frankly, product, then you need to spend the time on that. So you can't, I think it's really hard to be both a commodities and a specialty producer at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. That is a good example. And again, a couple of mistakes we made was because we were rushing and too much. So this next one is under real world examples for makers. It's a shop that has stayed stuck because of poor decision making. So what does that mean? That means you never raise your prices. You're staying too busy with unprofitable work. We kind of talked a little bit about that before. Sometimes it's good to raise your prices to get some breathing room. People won't order as much, and if they still order, then that tells you were too low to begin with, right?
Yeah, you shouldn't be winning 100% of your offerings of the quotes that you bid on. And I'll be honest, I get in that mentality like I want to win everything. I really don't, because that means you're probably too low. And we have a very small shop. I mean, we have some part-time help and then us. So we couldn't fill all that if we wanted to. And we've tried to do it before. And then you get burned out, back to opportunity cost. You're just hustling all the time.
Yeah, that's very true. So let's talk about how to apply some of this thinking in your business. The first thing that you probably should do is start writing down where you're spending your time and also where your revenue is coming from. Track your hours, what you're doing. Maybe just take 1 week. Don't change anything.
I would keep
up.
a detailed log. You
Yeah.
know, what time you get up, how much time you spend on the internet, just surfing, how much time you spend on emails. When you go through all that and how much time you spend actually making product, when you go through all that, you realize, wow, I need to block my time out. I know a lot of successful people they check their emails after noon, and they've trained people. I don't meet before noon or 1 o'clock. And I just get my work done early in the morning, and then I'm done with all my hustling early in the morning. Then it gives me the rest of the day to work on other things, right? And
yeah, that's a good example. And the other part of that bullet was, what products are you making that are bringing in the best return on investment? Hopefully, the makers out there are using some type of analytics tool. If you're using Shopify, Wix, or even Etsy, you can go through and look at the statistics, and you can easily see how many views am I getting, how many are selling. You can look at it by year, by quarter, or whatever. What's not selling, get that stuff off there, right? Or see if you can raise your prices, or just really, it's really doing a deep dive into what's selling and what's not. What about the next one, James?
You need to raise your prices with confidence. You kind of touched on this before. If we've had a lot of inflation, go out and look and see what other people are charging for their products. You don't want to be the cheapest. You really don't. I mean, you probably need to be a little above the middle, frankly, and then offer high quality, high service. That's what we go for.
What do you always say? Something like, you don't want to be the highest.
You want to be known as the cheap one.
Oh, no. But you always say something like, I ain't the most expensive, but I'm not the.
Oh, yeah. That's an old saying. I ain't the most expensive, but I ain't the cheapest.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
So we try to be like in the 65-ish percentage.
Yeah. But we think that our service and our quality is higher. And we've had maybe 2 or 3 issues with our quality. I'm just being honest. I mean, we put out thousands of products, right? But we admitted, hey, that was sometimes it was a shipping thing. It wasn't our fault. We never argue about it. We don't. We gladly take the product back or replace it. And that you don't want a bad reputation. You get a bad reputation. I mean, I've seen people change their Etsy names because they got a bad reputation.
Yeah.
You don't want that. You don't want bad ratings.
So, if you're too busy, your prices are too low. So bump them up a little bit, a certain percentage, and see what it does. Elevate your product lineup. Cut your low margin products that probably aren't selling, and then double down on the profitable ones.
We're pretty good about that one. I think we've been cutting our lower margin products. We could still do it, but anything for us, again, I've used this, but I don't want to compete with 4Print. I mean, I'm not going to win that battle with them. Now, we do have some customers that come to us and say, hey, I need you to do keychains, or I need you to do this or whatever. And we're like, well, look, frankly, you can get it cheaper through 4Print. And they're like, well, I want something a little higher quality. Okay. So we offer it to them. We still make our shop rate. I will say that.
Yeah. So the next one is to evaluate your product lineup. We've hit this a little bit in the early part of the podcast here, but cut the low margin work and double down on the profitable items. We really did that this last year. We've got a few products that I would put in that category, that those are the only ones we marketed. And those are the ones that we sent to our B2B clients with, here's what we can customize.
That's a good point.
Here's our new things this year.
Do samples, and those are important. I mean, that's a good investment. That leads to the next one, be intentional with your marketing. This is kind of a demand shaping thing. You should be using social media, your online content, your networking to focus on the products that bring you the best returns.
Yeah. And just like, the other day I had an order come in for 7 units of one of my higher priced items, and it was from someone that's in your network. So obviously you were talking to them and they had some things they needed for an event, and you were like, hey, we got something like that. So to your point, use your networking and push your higher return products. The next one, use a decision framework. Before saying yes to somebody, ask yourself first, what will I not be able to do because of this? And is this worth my time versus the next best alternative? I think we've gotten better in some cases at telling people we'll get back to you, or no, we don't do that anymore. We've made a conscious effort to say, these are the things we're offering now. I think it's hard as a maker to tell people no whenever you know that you could do it. I mean, someone could call you tomorrow and say, can you build me a barnwood door for my kids, playroom? They are building. You'd say, you can do that. But that's not where we need to be spending time. And those people want to pay probably $20 for it. So, what we've said is, we're not in that line of business anymore. We've got so many orders now that what we have on our products are up on our webpage, and that's what we can.
It will hurt you because you have all this overhead. We have a dedicated shop. We have the equipment. And then we do that. A funny side story. You remember we had one customer who wanted us to do a bunch of custom stuff for them. I went in and fixed some stuff in her house. I built like a bed for one of their family members.
Dog ramp to go into a doggy door.
We did some things for for their office space. And, you know, they were a good friend. And that's the thing that's really hard, is when they're a good friend and a good client. But, you know, we finally had to explain to that person, look, I'm sorry, we have all this overhead to take care of. And we're slammed with orders. Here's the name of someone else you can use.
And I don't think they were trying to be rude, but
No, they
I
weren't
felt like
malicious.
we were becoming their laborers or something. And I'm like, we're not carpenters. We're two engineers that just do this for fun. And
Yeah.
it was like, not that it was being taken advantage of, but you got to be very careful on,
you need to set boundaries.
again, where you're spending your time,
there are
right?
boundaries. Yeah.
And these were things that, gosh, I remember you driving that bed over to that house, and the people that lived there were just watching you schluck it inside. And it's like the husband didn't even really help you.
Oh, it's okay.
But it's to the point though, right? Should we have been doing that? Probably not, right? And so again,
it was a cool bed. We put LED lights on. I think you and Laser.
It was cool. But again, ask yourself, what will I not be able to do because I'm taking this job? And is it worth my time versus then something else that's in your queue that you need to do, right? And it's okay to say no. I think people who are really getting really good at boundaries of saying no are actually winning.
Yes, they are. Yep.
So let's go into some closing thoughts, James, and call to action. So will you kind of recap this for us a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you've hit it pretty well, but every time you say yes, there's a cost to that. It doesn't focus on helping you achieve your goals, your vision, your market for your business. Think about one thing you're currently doing that might have a high opportunity cost. How can you shift that to something better? It could be you're staying up really late, so you wake up late. It could be that you check your emails early in the morning and you don't get your work done first thing in the morning, or you're doing a bunch of hustling, so you can't work on new product development. I would really encourage you to slot out your time and your year and break out your time into hustling, marketing, developing new products, whatever, those value drivers are for you. And then
I can give an example of that one real quick. This year we hired in January a bookkeeper.
Okay, great one.
And I was spending a lot of time in that stupid Quicken online, and I don't really know how to reconcile that. I was just accepting it, accepted. And so it had an ungodly amount of money that said I had in there when I know it just needed to be reconciled. But that's not my forte, And she's
like 10 times as fast as us. She charges $50 an hour, which isn't cheap, admittedly, but it's not expensive.
No, and I mean, for me, I'm like, man, that's a small product that I,
let's say you spend 3 times as much time doing it yourself, then you're making $16 an hour, $17 an hour to do bookkeeping.
Yeah.
You could probably make more than $17 an hour doing your business, right?
Yeah.
So think about it in those terms.
Plus they're doing it right, and I probably wasn't.
That's right. Yep.
So that's a great example of opportunity cost. Just spend a little money and get someone else to do it. That's part of that farm out part, right? And get the professional to do it. If you have employees, maybe you need to hire an employee or two so you can be more responsive to the marketing and the networking, getting out there in front of them and not just over there painting. So kind of an example there. Well, listen, James, thanks. This has been a good podcast. We try to keep it under 35 minutes or so. That way it's something light that people can consume. And if anybody has any more questions on it, we can bring it up in the Laser Lounge Facebook group and talk about it a little bit further. And then, I think it's just something that no matter how mature your business is, it's, or even not even just maker. I mean, in your world as a project manager, opportunity cost is important in almost every key aspect of projects and business, et cetera, just because you should always be cognizant of where are you spending your time and what value you're getting from it. So any closing thoughts?
No, you hit it well. I mean, it's just an investment of your time. If you don't manage your opportunity cost, well, it'll be very hard for you to achieve the goals in your business and to win and be successful.
Yeah. So waking up and, there's good day planners out there that help people stay on topic. I think it's called Fox Runner. This is what we use. But, if you're running a business, treat it like a business. That's what we always like to say. It's not a joke. It's not a little hobby anymore. So your numbers matter. Know your numbers and look at where you're spending your time and your value. So thank you, James. Appreciate you having us on, coming on with me today. Again, we're going to try to do more of these more frequently. It was just crazy with fourth quarter and kind of getting back into things, but they're easy to kind of do and to talk. So we'll try to get back to once a week, and we'll see you guys on the social media side. Take care.
Cheers.